here we go. So the first thing I like to always start out with is, yes, we are a member of the Berkshire Hathaway Group. And so as a member of the Berkshire Hathaway Group of insurance companies, the note to the right where it says no renewals, please, that is actually specific to expiring policies at our affiliated companies. So if you've got expiring accounts at a National Indemnity Company or Guard or National Liability Fire, if the expiring policy is already with a Berkshire company, please don't place that business with us. We don't want to take away from the success of our sister companies, but there's plenty of business to go around. And with that, we have a depth and breadth of our own appetite at biBERK that covers almost 95% of all class codes. And that is on workers' comp, but also the appetite is, we have a healthy appetite on professional liability, BOP and GL. And our platform allows you to quote all of this, all the appetite we have with in just a matter of a few minutes. And so about 2/3 of the submissions you can get done without any underwriter touch. And so we largely like to be hands-off approach in our underwriting, but we do have a system in place for referrals, and I'll talk about that as well. And so this appetite that we have, it expands from new business ventures to those with lapses in coverage. So we have, and then we also have kind of a unique thing here at biBERK, and that's our partner services team, and I'll cover that a little bit as well. A little bit more on workers' comp and kind of what makes biBERK already stands out apart from the pack with our discounted rate compared to market. But one thing that is unique about our own rates is that in some states where approved, if the owner or officer is included, we're actually going to take an additional discount on that included payroll. And so that what you could see is anywhere between 30 and 50% on an owner officer payroll discounted rate compared to market. And so this is not in all states, and some states said no, but in many states. So what we encourage you here at biBERK to do is to do a quote with including an owner and excluding the owner officer. And you'll find that it's not too costly for the inclusion. And what speaking of inclusion on our policies, we cannot have a ghost policy. And so that means we don't allow policies to be ghost, or they're not covering any employees, they're not covering any owner officers. So please don't attempt to quote those with biBERK. Our systems are in place to prevent that, but we have experienced agents in the past, just across partnerships, where they try to negate our system and get a ghost policy in place. And so please just note that ghost is not something that we are able to do at biBERK. On professional liability, and a highlight on this product, we do have a discount of 10% for pay in full. This is a pay in full discount prior to issuance. So it's not something where you can go online and issue the policy with a payment plan or an installment plan, and then have the insured or yourself call in or try to pay the rest of the balance to obtain a discount. That's not going to be something we'll be able to facilitate. That discount that we have for our professional liability is pay in full prior to issuance. And so just be careful or cognizant of the pay plan that's assigned to the proposal for professional liability product that we have. So back to that partner services team I mentioned that we have. We have a customer service team within our department, and then we have an agent service team. I really want you to focus on the right side of the screen where we have your phone number and your email that on a day-to-day basis you can contact our biBERK partner services team to assist you with questions about your submissions. These are not underwriters that you'd be calling or emailing, but these are service representatives, some licensed, some not, that can help you in our processes, help you with the understand how to get something submitted over. And so we're there for you from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. That phone line is covered. So 8 a.m. Central Standard to 6 p.m. Central Time. And a little bit more about that partner services team. We have a variety of things that they'll do for you. And so our mission at biBERK and for our partnership is to empower our agencies like yours to sell as much as possible, but we also provide a service to that, and that's our customer service team will take a responsibility on post-issuance servicing of the account. And so if the insured is reaching out to us, if you're reaching out to us, we'll more than happy to help you in servicing that account. And one thing to know about biBERK and the issuance of our policies is upon issuance or binding, you're not required to have owners forms such as an exclusion form or a TRIA or an anti-arson form. What's actually done is post-issuance, after you've sold your policy, our policy service department is going to review the account for any needed forms and then actually create a task for our customer service team to obtain that form from the policyholder. So in addition to that, if you have an insured that calls us and they already have general liability or already have workers' comp, and they're expressed to us that they would also like an additional line of business, such as professional liability, we have the ability to make sure that you are going to retain agency of record on that additional line and receive credit on that. And so that's a bit about our partner services team. Now, the next few slides are called our best practices, and these are designed because of our good relationship we have with our partners and our internal department, underwriting department. And so we'll meet monthly to talk about what are the agents doing that we really need to help focus on for training. And so the first thing that always comes up is contact information. We want to ensure that the contact information being submitted on your policies is for the insured, not for the agency, and it's valid contact information. If we find that an agency is using their own information in place of the insured's, then it could lead to a suspension of of access to our system. And let's see, we have a question here. Oh, we have an additional. Okay, nope. And so contact information is very key to be for the insured. It's post-issuance follow-up. It's very important. And if you use, say, a false number on your submissions and you get a decline, that could prevent your submissions in the future from being timely underwritten. And so here's a visual of where you would see that contact information needs to be entered. So the first name, last name, email address, phone number, the mailing address, that all is to be for the first name insured. And I mentioned on one earlier slide that about 2/3 of the submissions are going to be done without any underwriter touch, very hands-off approach. But for the third that does require a referral, we have an email, underwriting@biberk.com, that's to be used for referral documentation. It's not to be used for, would you please quote this? Can you please rush this submission? Is this in your appetite? Please don't send those types of questions to our underwriting email address. There's a specific referral guidance that everyone receives upon being set up here at biBERK that they need to follow, and that forms that are part of that guidance get sent over to underwriting@biberk.com. So please, I can't express enough how important it is to understand the referral guidance that I sent over upon being set up and reading through that, because this is a key learning item that needs to be covered by yourself, so that way it prevents future declines, it prevents holdups from your submissions. We do love small here at biBERK, but we do have the ability to do a big submission. And so I'll quickly run over this slide. And that's just if you are submitting comp submissions with large ones, 150,000 or greater, be prepared with 5 years of premium, 5 years of payroll breakdown by state and class code, and 5 years of loss runs. And this is an example of something that would be sent over to underwriting@biberk.com after you've submitted your referral submission in our platform. Okay. So we do have the ability to do multi-building, multi-location policies. Those on our workers' comp, you just need to enter one state or one location for each state that you have on the submission. If you are looking to cover more than one state on a policy, you'll answer yes to that question in the underwriting questions, and then what's going to happen is it's going to trigger referral, and we have a form that needs to be completed, and that's sent over as part of the onboarding to our new partners. On a BOP and GL, we do have the ability to do a max number of buildings locations to the policy of 10. And so there is a separate form for those multi-locations for the BOP and GL as well. Duplicate submissions. I can't stress enough that our underwriting department works in a first come, first serve. And so if you are referring over, if anything needs to be referred over to them, please make sure that you're just doing it once, not trying to submit multiple times. Otherwise, it's just going to clog our system. We do have, we try to work with one submission per production source as much as possible. If you do get a decline on a referred submission from an underwriter, you can ask for reconsideration, but it's got to be on the same submission, and you'll just provide the underwriter with new information for them to consider. You can't just provide a blanket. Please, no, you can't just say this is a really good account. You can't try and sell the account to the underwriter. It's not necessarily, that's not the way that biBERK works. And so I just want to encourage you to understand that everything starts with the system application, but if something gets referred over, underwriter can consider a decline with some new information. Our proposals will expire 10 days after the policy start date on a proposal. And I'll show a little bit more about what I mean on that later. But the reopening of an expired quote for an underwriting approved quote, that can be done by posting a conversation in our portal, mentioning that there's no changes in operations or losses since the last proposal, as well as stating the new effective date that you'd like. One thing we'd like to encourage you to do is be cognizant of the expiration of the pricing by, if you're working an account a month in advance, make sure that you can put that date out as far as up to 90 days out. And so if you make any changes that you can do, it'll be easier to do if you make sure that that time for the proposal start date is going to be further out. If you have a system quote, now that will expire. That's one of the few times that I'll tell you, yes, submit that again. But if you get a auto underwriting quote that did time out, that would need to be rekeyed or redone. So just wanted to provide a visual of what you'd see after going to our website, biberk.com/partners. And so just want to stress that the setup here at biBERK works by providing us emails, and so email addresses. And so if you get access to biBERK, you have provided us, let's say, for example, john.smith@insuranceagency.com. And then you're going to go ahead and log in with your email address that's provided, and it uses the Microsoft account that's attached to that email. And if you don't already have a Microsoft account attached to the email that's provided to us, upon acceptance, you'll be asked to create one. This is I think it's a unique thing to biBERK, but it allows you to remember one less password for another system. Okay, so I'm going to cover our biBERK service portal. This is your home for after being onboarded with biBERK, and this is where you're going to see current activity for your submissions. In addition to that, this is where you're going to start all of your applications. I can't express enough how important it is to start your applications from this portal by clicking that pencil. If you start a submission by going to the wrong link or reusing a link that shouldn't have been used, you risk not getting credit on your submission, not getting access to the policy. So it's very important that anytime you start your submission that you're clicking that pencil. Okay. All right. So Let's see. There we go. Here we go. So here, just showing you an example of a quote being worked. And so what happened here is we click that pencil. And so after clicking that pencil, a new tab is going to open. And that new tab takes you to this user experience. And on this user, it mimics the one that the policyholder or customers would see by going to our website. But by clicking that pencil, it retains your agency on the policy and you'll get credit on it. So a lot of agents make the mistake of saving this additional window and reusing that. So please don't do that. Otherwise, you won't be able to get credit on the policy. So all of our applications are going to start with the basic question set. They use Mad Libs that they're called internally, but basic question set. This is the best way to determine eligibility or what our appetite here is at biBERK. It's going to be to your benefit to start with this screen versus we do have an appetite guide. We do have you can call and email in, but this is the best place to really determine what's eligible at any one point in time. And so here for this example, we've got a quick service restaurant, and it's going to ask about the number of employees. And when we're asking about the number of employees this early on, it's going to be about the W-2 employees, not 1099s or contract workers. And so we're going to move forward with this basic question set to the location of the operation. On this screen, it's very key to understand that if you're looking for leaser's risk only submission coverage, that's going to be done by choosing towards the right, I own a property and lease to others. That's going to allow you to get a leaser's risk only application done. And so we're going to move forward with this basic question set and then answer another basic question about the property, help with our recommendation engine, and then the business location, the zip code for that'll help determine whether or not we're eligible there. So here for this example, there's going to be workers' compensation that's eligible based on those few questions. So this is the starting point for all of your submissions. And so what I encourage you to use this as much as possible. There'll be just from my own time when I was on our internal sales team, we could change our appetite. Usually it expands, it doesn't contract, but one day we could be not doing one thing and another we'd be doing it. And so we started to use the phrase trust the system. That's the best way. Trust our system. We're updating it as much as possible to expand our appetite, update our underwriting qualification questions. So here we got workers' compensation. We're going to move forward with that. And so one thing I want to cover is the start date of a policy. We can't do today or prior. It's got to be prospective. And so tomorrow or later is the earliest you're going to be able to get a policy started. And so in some of our applications, they're going to ask about all of them are going to ask about the total payroll, but you do get the option to break that out into companion payroll, such as clerical or to drivers or sales. It really depends on the risk and the type of submission that you're doing. But we do have the ability to do some. So say, for example, you're doing operations A, B, C, and D. You can't get that all done in the simple application. There's a method to that, and I'll show that later. But here we just have a simple restaurant, and we're going to move forward with that. And again, on this screen, I can't stress enough how important it is that the first named insured contact information is going to be used for the submission. Otherwise, it could lead to issues with the servicing the policy. Move on to the next. Oh, where do we go here? Sorry about that. Here we go. So our next phase of our workers' comp application is going to ask about the owners and officers. This is another time I like to use the phrase trust our system. And we're going to have put in place already the rules that all the states have with regard to inclusion or exclusion of owners, officers. And if you want to do something you're not able to do an auto underwriting or system quote for, that's going to require a forced referral. And I'll talk a bit more about what that means later. And so here we have the owner officer information we're going to input. And then the next thing where it's going to be questions about the services that the submission will have, the business will have. And we're going to, this screen largely drives whether or not something would decline. So it's very important to not answer these questions until you're ready with the information. Otherwise, you could lead to an accidental referral or decline. And here, after we've entered our questions, answered our questions, we're going to get a quote. And so hopefully, right? And so after you've gotten your quote, you'll see this screen, and you'll have an email my quote button. You can use that to email yourself or the third party or the insured. But then we have here the two options, one option being without the owner officer, one with the owner officer, and we have the ability to update the employer liability limits as well. My recommendation, just based on servicing a few accounts, is to go ahead and use $1 million limits across the board. I see we have a question about if we have, what do we choose for business type? So very good question. When you're doing a leaser's risk and you're answering the industry question, I think that's the question that needs answered. Is it's based on occupancy. So if you have, say, for example, an apartment with a deli in the bottom, and if the apartment's got greater square footage in that building, then you'd use apartment. So what's going to happen in both instances at the end is it's going to ask, if you say, for example, you submitted a deli exposure and you mentioned you were looking for leaser's risk, it's going to ask, well, are there residential units? And then if you submit the apartment building, it's going to ask, is there a restaurant on site? So the application will ask about both scenarios, but when you're choosing the industry, go based on the occupancy of the greatest occupancy that, deli versus an apartment. That's an example. And so here we update the limits and we can move forward. Let's see. Notice that you don't need an FEIN or social security number to obtain a quote initially. Now, there are some instances where, based on a developed account where they would have one, that might be asked for earlier on. But usually that's few and far between. But here, to move forward with the quote that we were to get, we do have to provide that FEIN or social security number. There is a back and modify button. So on that back and modify button, I highlight that here so you can go back to view the quote. But then in addition to that, I just want to highlight this email button that you can see. And then what allows you to do is to choose, to enter your email, the insured's email, and what's going to happen is they're going to get a PDF proposal of that quote to review for their to make a decision. And so the last page after we get through this FEIN is our binding page. This is where the last screen that you'd see before the issuance. And so on this page, you have the ability to update the pay plans. You can choose whether or not to opt the insured out of auto pay. For the premiums that are $1,000 or less, we actually will not provide an option to opt out of auto pay. That can only be done post issuance. So here we've got the installment fees that's going to be shown that will be applied if they do choose to opt out of auto pay. And we have a binding script that needs to be read. And then, so I'll cover this a little bit more, but we have two buttons here: purchase and submit to underwriting. If you're ready to move forward, click purchase. Submit to underwriting has a specific use for it, and it's not. A lot of agents make the mistake to think that to move forward with the submission, they just need to click submit to underwriting. That's not the case. To move forward, it'd be clicking purchase. In the biBERK world, binding for us is payment on the policy. So there's not a bind button versus a purchase button, but to purchase is equatable to bind here at biBERK. Okay. And so here is an example of the email that they would receive along with the copy of the proposal. And then, so say if you were unfortunate enough that you weren't able to issue right away, here's an example of, the next day. So last one we did a quick service restaurant. This one, my fake business called Adam Counts It. I want to go back into it. I clicked on it on the dashboard, went to the on the documents tab, you'll find any previous proposals that you generated. But then on the underwriting tab, to continue with the submission, you'll go there and click continue purchase path. This takes you to the existing application with the retained answers. It's not a new application, but the existing application. So I'll move back over to your sorry about that. Here we go. So and I mentioned 2/3 of the business here at biBERK is going to be done via auto underwriting. This is not, without a touch, and to be able to submit that application, get within a few minutes, get a certificate of insurance. But there is some business we can't do that way. And so there's a referral process. So we have two types of referrals. One is a forced referral. And this is what that button I showed you is submit to underwriting. This is where you are choosing that you want to go off the auto underwriting path and you want to get something fully reviewed by an underwriter. There's a few reasons that you might need to do this. One would be, say, the insured didn't want to bind with a debit or credit card. It's a simple example, but that can be done via referral. You'd click submit to underwriting, and there's going to be a conversation box, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. The other example of forcing something over to underwriting is, I mentioned earlier, where you have an exposure that has operations A, B, C, and D, and you're just not able to encapsulate all of that within the simple application, and that's where you would follow the submit to underwriting process. The other type of referral is a system triggered referral. At the end of the application, you'll see this notice that says your coverage requires a little special attention. Please contact us. You and our agents do not need to call in for this. This is something they can work themselves, and I'll show you how that's worked. So here, there we go. Let me make sure I get this.
Yeah, in the meantime that you're sharing your screen, we send you guys a question to see how many people that is participating in this webinar have the logins yet or not. Please just answer us, so in that way, if you don't have it yet, you can request it so you can start having access to this amazing market. And if you already have it, please tell us your questions. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Perfect. No, thanks for your patience. So I switch over to this tutorial. And so this is an example of the screen that you'd see at the end of a system-triggered referral. And so what is going to happen here, and I want to stress how important this process is in working referrals. And so it's very key to pay attention to the details that are covered here, because if you aren't compliant in a referral guidance, then it's very easy to get it declined by an underwriter by not being compliant in a referral guidance. And so you'll see the system triggered referral has a couple notes here: multi-state condition found, number of claims. And so what happens here is there's going to be a conversation underwriting box. This box needs to contain on all referrals a couple things. The first is a brief synopsis of the business operation, just a brief summary of the products and services that the insured has. The second thing is a breakdown of payroll. This is very important, especially when you're trying to do something, and this is for those exposures, of operations A, B, C, and D. You're just not able to encapsulate that all in one submission. And so you want to make sure that you highlight the payroll. I clicked the button and it went to the wrong screen. So what you'll see here is a breakdown of payroll second to the brief synopsis of the operation. And then with that comes the list of owners and officers and their inclusions or exclusion status. The last thing that needs to be covered on every referral is the addressing of the referral reason. This is not a box where you would type, please quote, please brush. I need this account bound today. Is this something with an appetite? You need to address the reason. I like to say that underwriters want to know why you're making them manually review something, and that's addressed here in this third item. And so we have the brief synopsis of the business operation, as well as the breakdown of the payroll and the addressing of the referral reason. Here, it's clearly stated what the reasons are, and so those just need to be addressed in that conversation to underwriting box. Okay, and so here, okay, so after submitting to underwriting, then it goes into the underwriter queue, and they'll work it, as I mentioned earlier, first in, first out. I just want upon onboarding with biBERK, I send out an email that includes a document called referral guidance. Much of what I've talked about right here is in that document called referral guidance.